Anyway, so I'm really grateful to be here, and thanks for allowing me to speak. This is my wife, and we've been married now, we're coming on 30 years, but we've known each other for 45 years. We dated in high school. This is me getting an award, Practitioner of the Year in 2013 for Northern California. That was amongst about 5,000 chiropractors. I grew up surfing in Southern California. This was just about a year ago I was down there. And hiked Half Dome just this last year for the second time. That was pretty amazing. And I hiked with 7 men. 3 of them had just graduated from high school, young men. And only 2 of the 7 of us made it to the very top. So it's quite a challenge, but the nutritional therapy that I was taking at the time definitely gave me the energy to get there. And this is me working on a cow. I work at Sonoma Horse Park, but I've also been called out to a dairy farm twice now to work on Holsteins, 2 different times. They asked me if I wanted milk for that, and I said, I don't drink milk. I'm a drummer. I was a professional drummer. I play at St. Vincent's Church on Sunday. I like to fish. I grew up fishing. My dad used to take us out of San Diego albacore fishing when I was a little kid, and this was just in Alaska about a year ago with 50-pound halibut. I paint, watercolor, been doing that since '04. And it's my daughter and I sail on this boat I sail on, and we were just sailing just last Saturday. We were racing, and it was very stormy and windy last Saturday. If you remember, the weather was sketchy. So we were just crossing the start line, which is always very hectic, jostling around with position around all these boats. And one of the women who we sail with happened to lift her head up at just the wrong time and caught the boom right in her face, coming across the back of the boat, and broke her nose. It was just really, really a bad scene. And luckily she was okay, but stuff like that can happen. It's kind of a scary deal. It's a lot of fun, but you also have to really watch your head. She could have been killed. So today I want to talk to you about, I do a lot of work with the endocrine system. The endocrine system are the system of glands that produce hormones that regulate pretty much everything in the body. And it can be a tangled up, convoluted, complicated mess. When patients come in with a list of symptoms to try to work through the whole myriad of glands and figure out what's really causing the problem, can be a challenge. So I'm going to try to take a complicated situation and make it really simple. Today I want to talk about thyroid. The thyroid gland is a gland that's right here in the neck. I'll show you that in a minute. But it is one of the main endocrine glands. It pretty much every single cell in the body gets influence from the thyroid. It also is controlled, somewhat communicates with the adrenal glands. It's really controlled by the hypothalamus and the pituitary. Those are the master hormone glands in the brain. And it's also affected by our sex glands as well, the ovaries and the testes. So the glands all communicate with one another, and so a lot of things can show up that look like an adrenal thing, but they're really a thyroid, or they're presenting like a thyroid, but they're really pituitary. The key is to know how to kind of navigate through that whole process and figure out what's really going on with the patient. It can be complicated. And in medicine, they do a test for the thyroid. The actual blood panel, complete panel, involves about 9 different tests. Medical doctors only do 1 of those 9 and try to decipher what's going on with just that TSH, which is the hormone that's produced by the pituitary. So it's a very incomplete analysis, and they always just jump on treating the thyroid, when 50% of the time they're wrong. So the thyroid's here. You should be able to palpate it very slightly, but you shouldn't be able to see it. Classic presentation of a particular woman who's got a thyroid, as you can see, they've got a puffiness in the neck and a crease along their neck here usually. One of the things that affects the thyroid that is overlooked a lot of times is a neck trauma. Whiplash injury, the nerves in the lower part of the neck that are affected by a neck head trauma, like the girl that took the boom in the face, those nerves control your thyroid. So if the nerve supply to the thyroid is not sufficient, that can also cause a thyroid deficiency. You probably know all about that, huh, Wendy? It's one of the key endocrine players, one of the largest endocrine glands. It has a slow turnover, cellular turnover. It's the main iodine is the key player in terms of mineral support for the iodine, for the thyroid. One of the reasons thyroid problems are so common these days is because iodine has been removed from our diet. Back in the 60s, they used to put iodine in our wheat, in our flour, in bread. And they switched it to dibromine, which is a very toxic halogen. So a lot of people are iodine deficient. And 75% of the total iodine is stored in the thyroid gland. The blood flow is pretty pronounced through the thyroid gland. All the blood in the body passes through the gland every 17 minutes. Only the adrenal gland has more support, blood support. Pretty much all the human cells are controlled by the thyroid. They can have profound effects on pretty much all the systems in the body. So really what I want to talk about are how do you determine if a person has a thyroid issue? The thyroid and the adrenals communicate with one another. And we talked about stress earlier. Stress is probably the most common cause of thyroid issues because stress affects the adrenal glands first. The adrenal glands are your stress glands, and they will work and work and work. And when they fail, if a person's been under stress for a long period of time, the adrenals will finally fail, and the thyroid will have to kick in and take up the slack, and then that can fail. So 95% of the time, if a person comes in complaining of thyroid issues, it's really an adrenal problem. An adrenal issue can manifest with things like cardiovascular symptoms like panic attacks, shortness of breath, dizziness when you get up too quickly, eyes sensitive to light, interrupted sleep patterns, and low back pain. Those are common symptoms of adrenal stress. Thyroid presents with things like, on your list that I gave you, things like depression is a really common thing. Your hair gets thin and starts falling out. If a person's missing the outside 1/3 of their eyebrows, that's a classic presentation that somebody's got thyroid weakness. Their skin can get really scaly and dry. Your thyroid is your body's thermostat, so it controls your body temperature. So if you check your body temperature, and you can do it with a little axillary thermometer, if it's 1 degree low, typically that's a classic sign of a thyroid issue. The patient will be cold. So hair falling out, real dry skin, depression, and one of the big ones, especially for women, one of their big concerns is weight. So their metabolism is going to slow way down, so they can't lose that weight no matter how hard they try to work out and change their diet. If there's a biochemical imbalance with the thyroid, it's going to be they will not be able to lose their weight. So what we do in the office, I can order blood work, and we have run many complete blood panels on patients with thyroid issues. Right now I'm working with a woman from Napa. She travels to see me in Napa. I see her once a month. She needs to lose about 50 pounds. And we've got her started on some specific thyroid support right away. And already in the first month, she's lost about 10 pounds. She's doing great. She sat down with me last time I saw her, and she said, I know I've tried so many different things. I know I'm in the right place. This is really working. So she's making dietary changes, but the biochemical change and getting that thyroid jump-started. Her moods are shifting. She's able to handle the stress throughout the day she normally couldn't handle, and it's having a profound impact on the quality of their life. So what I want to do is I'm going to have Andrea come up here real quick, and I'm just going to demonstrate really quickly how we muscle test for a thyroid and the endocrine system in general. So you're going to hold your arm up just like that. I'm going to push down, and you're going to resist. Okay, so the thyroid's right here, and she tests nice and strong. The master hormone reflex is right here, and that's a little bit weak. And so we can go to the pituitary here, the hypothalamus, and then the adrenal point is right at the axil, right under the armpit here. The adrenal's a little bit tired, so we give the patient, have them hold some adrenal support, go right there, and that's strong. So she'd be a great candidate for some adrenal support, which can prevent a thyroid issue from happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.